Welcome back, viewers. To continue our discussion on liberalism, on neo-liberalism, on Republican liberalism, we will now discuss the neo-realist critique of liberalism. The neo-realists about whom we have studied earlier, they have come out with a very trenchant, severe critique of liberalism. The debate, in fact, between liberalism and realism continues, and the fundamental issue, the fundamental point of conflict between liberalism and realism is the very different view of human nature that the two have. The realists believe that human nature is selfish, that humans are prone to conflict, that they have a pessimistic view of human nature. As against that, the liberals believe that although human beings are competitive, but they can also collaborate and cooperate with each other, and which creates a possibility of peace within the society and outside it. One of the important neo-realist thinkers, Walls, he says, you have misunderstood politics because you have misestimated human nature. So, he clearly shows how the difference between realism and liberalism is basically about the very fundamental and basic premise from which they start, and that is human nature. Of course, in more recent times, both the realists, the neo-realist and the neo-liberals, they have come to an agreement that perhaps it is not very right to characterize human nature in terms of black and white. Human nature is highly complex. Individuals at times can be very selfish or quarrelsome. At the same time, at other times, they can also do good things. They can cooperate with each other. They are amenable to peace sometimes. They can be kind and generous. So, both the aspects of human nature are there, and therefore, human beings have a very complex nature. It should not be simplified in terms of black and white. Then another factor which has mediated the change in liberal thought is the impact of behavioral movement in political science. The behavioral movement, as we know, does not talk about the human nature as such, does not talk about internal moral qualities and capabilities of the individuals. They rather talk about observable facts. Their analysis is based on measurable data. They try to find patterns of human behavior. So, instead of talking about the goodness or badness of human nature, they would like to study human behavior through observation, and they would like to measure it, if possible to quantify it, and they are mainly concerned with external world. They are not concerned with what is going on within the individuals, their innate nature, their moral qualities or capabilities. They are concerned about their behavior, the behavior, human behavior. And are there any patterns which can be discerned in human behavior, and on the basis of those observable patterns, can we come to some generalizations about human behavior, and based on those generalizations, can we predict that how humans will behave in given conditions. So, this is the behavioral movement, and because of the behavioral movement, human behavior rather than innate nature and moral qualities came into focus. The realists and the liberals have a somewhat different approach to history or view about history. The realists say that states remain states in spite of historical change. So, they believe that the anarchical system in which all states are at war with each other, or at least there is propensity for war, and the state security and survival are the core concern of all states, that self-help is the only help that states can ultimately depend on. They cannot depend on help from other states or from international organizations. In a situation of universal anarchy, self-help is the only thing that states have to or fall back upon. They have to prepare themselves for defense against their potential enemies. Security and survival are the only core concern and objectives of states, and one state's security is another state's insecurity. So, if one state is able to become really secure, like US is trying to, it will mean that the others will be insecure, because that one state will be more powerful than others and can endanger the security of others. The result is arms race, conflict, and war. So, the realists have a very pessimistic view of history, and they don't believe that progressive change is possible. The critique of a liberal view of history is given by the realists. The liberals believe that international relations is at least potentially progressive. I mean, the possibility and prospect of peace and cooperation is there. Of course, the realists would say history is the same damn things over and over again. So, human behavior or state behavior hasn't changed in the course of 2000 years or so. Thucydides, who was writing before Christ and who is considered the father of realist theory, he basically talked about anarchy and talked about the conflict and war among states. He also talked about how there are states which are more powerful, there are states which are less powerful, and the principle of justice, according to Thucydides, is not equal for all states. The weaker states will have to somehow accommodate the will of the stronger states. Of course, the liberals also believe in economic interdependence, but the realists say this is not new. Economic interdependence, international trade has been there for thousands of years. Even during ancient period, there was trade between the countries of Europe and Asia. The Great Silk Route was there. But this economic interdependence has not really prevented war and conflict. In the post-Second World War period, increase in world trade, financial flows, international banking has not really prevented conflict or war. The role of on the role of international institutions, they say that states cooperate through institutions, but only to serve self-interest. So, whereas the liberals, institutional liberals, emphasize the importance and possibility of and role of international institutions, the realists say that, well, international institutions can be there, are there, but the states use these institutions to serve their self-interest, and these institutions do not and cannot overrule the self-interest or national interest of the states. The strong will always prevail over the weak, something which Thucydides said more than 2000 years back, that institutions are theater stages where power unfolds, power play unfolds. So, the international institutions and international arena is basically a theater where the stronger states are able to carry out their wishes. They are the playwright of this play. Institutions are not important in their own right. Mersheimer, neo-realist thinker Mersheimer says that institutions are not important in their own right. The neo-realists also emphasize the persistence and permanence of anarchy and insecurity. They say that today's friends can be tomorrow's enemies in international relations. There are no permanent friends or permanent enemies. There is only a permanent interest, national interest or state interest. Another critique or criticism of Republican liberalism is the possibility of democratic backsliding, which I have mentioned earlier, that some of these states, many of these states in Eastern Europe, some at least, or especially in Africa and Latin America, that became democratic a few decades back, are now going back to authoritarian rule, and therefore democratic backsliding is something which has to be taken into account, which has to be configured before pronouncing a judgment on state behavior or on a global peace or international peace. Lamentably, in fact, Mersheimer says, lamentably, it is not possible for even liberal democracies to transcend anarchy. Anarchy is something which cannot be wished away, which is something which is a given, which is something which is persistent and permanent. And the states have to adapt their behavior to this anarchy which is permanent and prevalent throughout ages. The liberals have tried to adjust with the realist critique of their approach, their ideology. For example, Robert Keohane and Joseph Nye, who both were called sociological liberals, they make a distinction between a state-centric paradigm and world politics paradigm. The state-centric paradigm focuses on interstate interactions, whereas the world paradigm, the world politics paradigm, focuses on transnational interactions in which non-governmental actors play a significant role. So, both Robert Keohane and Joseph Nye have come out with this distinction between state-centric and world-centric paradigms. Sociological liberalism, about which I talked about, was very popular in the early 1960s. Just after the end of the Second World War, between the interwar periods, liberalism dominated. During the Second World War and after the Second World War, the realist theory dominated. But by the beginning of 1960s, when Europe witnessed greater democracy, greater prosperity, and also the possibility of cooperation among the European states with the founding of Coal and Steel Union. So, because of that, sociological liberalism became very popular in early 1960s. However, there was a belief, and the neorealists emphasized that this type of transnational cooperation or relations could only develop smoothly under a dominant American power, under American hegemony. Once the American hegemony became weak, for example, after the Vietnam War, during the Vietnam War, which was later half of 1960s and early 1970s, with the waning of American power and hegemony, the possibility of sociological liberal or institutional liberal hope of global peace also waned. And the neorealists again started criticizing the liberal thought. They started emphasizing, re-emphasizing the relevance of realist framework of power. From here, after a complex or rather a clash between liberal and realist approaches, there was a move towards complex interdependence. Complex interdependence believes in the centrality of the states, that states remain the prime actors in the international arena. That they also acknowledge, admit that international system is basically anarchical, that power of the states is very important factor in their behavior. The strong states can prevail over the weak states, but international institution can facilitate cooperation. Someone like Johann, while admitting that international system is anarchical, admitting that states are the primary actors, nevertheless believes that international institutions can facilitate cooperation among states. And this is called a new form of liberalism, which some writers refer to as weak liberalism. The neorealists claim that institutional liberals ignore the matter of relative gains. In doing so, they fail to identify a major source of state inhibition about international cooperation. The neorealists criticize the liberal claim or liberal faith in international cooperation by saying that the states are inhibited by the fact that they are not sure who will be gaining more from this cooperation, whether they will gain or the adversary will gain more. And this somehow undermines international cooperation. If states have interests in common, they will not worry about relative gains. Now, this is the liberal argument, that if states have interests which they share in common with other states, then they will not worry too much whether they themselves or some other state has gained more from this cooperation. And in such a situation where the states believe in common interest, the possibility of cooperation is much more. Finally, the two to some extent reconcile their thoughts, or their approaches can be reconciled by the possibility of cooperation under anarchy. So, even though anarchy is there, anarchy cannot be wished away, anarchy is something which is permanent, but cooperation under the system of anarchy is also possible. Uh, of course, these adjustments made in the liberal theory has meant that the liberal theory no longer remains very different or distinctive from the neo-realist theory. Neo-realism, in fact, many writers feel, for example, Mearsheimer once said that liberalism or neo-realism, neoliberalism is neo-realism by another name. The neoliberals have compromised so much, have accommodated the realist concerns and postulates to an extent that they do no longer remain different from the realists. On the other hand, Keohane believes that there is close familiarity between institutional theory and neo-realism, that these can be reconciled, the gap between them is not so great. Especially with the end of Cold War and globalization, there has been an overall boost to the liberal theory, to the prospect of global cooperation, at least in the initial years or decade after the end of the Cold War and the Soviet disintegration and the increase in globalization, that gave a boost to the liberal theory. However, the liberal theory has gone through at least two forms or models. One is strong liberalism, uh, which believes that there is a qualitative change which has taken place, that history is not the same as it used to be in the course of last 2000, 2500 years. There is a qualitative change. They also believe that the economic interdependence that we witness today ties or brings together the countries much closer to each other. That production and consumption take place in a worldwide market. So, if the market has become worldwide and production consumption is increasingly becoming global, then in such a situation the possibility of cooperation and collaboration increases. Countries can't opt out of this system, they have become so interdependent, integral, uh, that they cannot opt out of this system. There are many thinkers which can be identified as strong liberals, for example, Rosenau or Slaughter or Eckenberry or Sarney. These are all thinkers who basically try to reconcile liberalism with they in fact emphasize the core assumptions of the liberal thought, and therefore they are called strong liberals. The strong liberal arguments are that there need not be raw anarchy with only fear and insecurity all around. It is there, but that is not the only thing. there can be legitimate and effective international authority, and this international global authority will to some extent be able to minimize the chances of conflict and promote international cooperation. Carl Dosch, his theory of security communities or security community, which we studied in our earlier lectures, this is one important aspect. He basically believes that consolidated liberal democracies of the West Europe, North America and Japan, they together constitute a security community, and peace and cooperation is possible among them. There is a more nuanced view of peace and war. Peace is not merely the absence of war, as most realists believe. Peace is something more, qualitatively more than mere absence of conflict or war. These liberals also believe that there are different kinds of and degrees of peace. There can be warm peace, like the one that is there among the countries of West Europe and North America, that is warm peace, G7. But there is also cold peace, which is merely absence of war, the peace that existed between US and Soviet Union during the Cold War. So that can be characterized as cold peace. These are some of the important readings for the viewers. Thank you very much.